of the 8th workshop of Skills Bootcamp. In today's session, all the geoinformatics enthusiasts will come to learn about types of data, georeferencing, digitization, symbology, and also about some basic geoprocessing tools. Yesterday, you all saw the applications and uses of GIS. Today, you will be getting a glimpse of how to work on QGIS software. So, to give you an insight about QGIS, today we have Mr. Debashish Das, mentor of the Geoinformatics Club from Civil Engineering Department, MTech Part 2 with us. So, Mr. Debashish Das, you can start now.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Satakshi. Am I audible loud and clear, everybody? Can anyone confirm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this session. And first of all, a very happy New Year to each and every one of you. And I hope that you and your family are doing great during these unprecedented times of COVID-19. And hi, I'm Devashish Das. I'm a final year MTech student in the specialization of geoinformatics in the Department of Civil Engineering. So I'll be presiding over today's session. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So I'll just share my screen with all of you. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so I've shared my screen. Is it visible to everyone? Can anybody confirm?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so before moving on to GIS, I would like to give some basic idea about the types of data that we are going to work with, or any person who is getting started with GIS has to know. These are some of the basic things that someone has to know before getting started. Okay, so types of data. So there are basically two types of data. Okay, the first data that I'm talking about is a non-spatial data. By spatial, I mean space, or as the real world as itself. So we are referring to space here. So it's non-spatial data, or as you can call it, attribute type of data. So I'll just type in so that everybody can see and refer to it easily. So what is this attribute or non-spatial kind of data? It is the basic, simplest form of data. That is data in the form of table or any databases or anything like that. So suppose you have an Excel sheet and you have multiple rows and columns in it, and yeah, that is your non-spatial data. So the basic format of any non-spatial data is a .csv, as we have in a spreadsheet file or Excel file, or we have .xlsx. So this is the basic format of a non-spatial or attribute type data. Now there's another type of data which is spatial data, and this spatial data is where GIS comes into the picture. So now we have a non-spatial data, and if we associate a simple property to it, we can get the spatial data from it. What is that property? That property is nothing but geography. So yeah, this is how GIS comes into picture. Now what is GIS? GIS is geographical information system. So information system is our non-spatial data that we have in the tabular form. Add the geometry or location to it, and you have GIS in front of you. So yeah, moving on to the next type of data, which is spatial data. Spatial data. Now here in spatial data, we have some classes. So basically, the first type of spatial data is vector data. Now, when I refer to vector data, this is something which can be categorized into three more classes. Basically, vector data is classified into three more classes, which is namely points, lines, and polygons. So I'll be discussing this and demonstrating you this more in detail as we move on with our QGIS session. Just for now, you should know that there are three types of vector data, which is point, lines, and polygons. Okay, and the basic data type that is involved in using vector data, or the basic data type which is associated with any type of vector data. There are many types of data types, but the most commonly used are .shp, which stands for shapefile, .dbf, which is a database file, and .shx, which is an index kind of file. There are many more other data types, but these are the most commonly used ones. Now, second up, we have raster data. Now, what is raster data? Raster data is basically any image, or any data which is in the form of pixel. It is called raster data. So all the basic formats, .png, .jpg, and then we have some other data types like TIFF, or you can call it GeoTIFF. So these are the basic data types that are associated with raster data. Now, when I say raster data, it is any image. Okay, so it can be a map in the form of an image, a soft copy of a map, or it can be any satellite image, or it can be a simple type of data where the representation is done in the form of pixels. So we have different types of pixels, and each pixel store a single data. Now, when it comes to vector data, you can have large number of data sets and large number of fields or attributes associated with it. But when it comes to raster data, in the entire file or in the entire image file, there are multiple pixels, and each pixel can only store one type of data. One pixel may store a brightness value, or it may store a color, or it may store an elevation value, like elevation at a certain point in space. So that is basically raster data. Now, the third type of data which we have is nothing but metadata. Now, metadata is data about data. So what is metadata? So suppose if you take a simple example, if you are considering a satellite image, now if a satellite is orbiting the Earth and it is capturing the surface of the Earth, a particular area of Earth in multiple time spaces in after different time intervals. So every time it captures the photo, it records some data on its own, like the orientation of the camera, the angle at which the image was taken, if there was any haze or not, and what was the speed of the satellite at that point of time, what was the inclination of the satellite to the Earth's surface. So these are basically metadata. Also the location, like the coordinates, the latitude, longitude, these kind of data are also stored in metadata. Now now when I was talking about spatial data, non-spatial data, sorry, when I was talking about non-spatial data, and to convert it into spatial data, we had to associate a property, that is geometry or geography. So that geometry or geography is nothing but latitude and longitude, the coordinates, basically the location of a certain thing on the surface of the Earth. So if we associate this property to the non-spatial data, we can obtain spatial data from it. Okay, so that was the basic thing that I wanted to discuss about data types. Now let's just get started with our QGIS session. Now the first topic which we'll be discussing today is georeferencing. Now, as I've already talked about raster data, now georeferencing is something that you do only with raster data. You can do it with vector data as well, but vector data in general contains its location before, like whenever you create it, it already has its location. Now, sometimes you may have an image of a map or something that does not know where to locate itself. So for that purpose, we have to do georeferencing. I'll just explain it gradually and slowly. Just bear with me, take some time to load. Okay, yeah, so we are ready. So before getting started, so this is the main QGIS window, and we have some few things which I would like to discuss here. First, if you can locate my cursor over here, we have something called EPSG 4326. So now this is the coordinate projection system, that is the projection system which we are going to work with. And we have other things over here, like the scale of the map that we are going to work with, the coordinates, and something called magnifier and rotation, different kind of things. So what I'll do is, first of all, I'll load a base map over here. What do you mean by base map? A simple Google map. So whenever you are using a Google map on your mobile phones or anything, so that is a service that is being provided by Google in the form of map. So we have different kinds of data available, actually different kinds of services actually that are provided. I have list. You can see a list of few of them over here. Like we have OpenStreetMap, we have OSM Cycle Map. Similarly, you can see Google Satellite over here. Now, what I'm doing is I'm just importing the entire Google Map, as you see on your mobile application, into the QGIS system. So what I'll do here is I just searched for I just simply searched QGIS XYZ tile layers. Okay, so I'll be discussing it when I open the main window. So I'll just copy this link for now. So each provider or layer has its own URL. Now this URL will help you to import the entire Google Map thing into your QGIS system. So I'll just copy it. I've copied it. Now here you can see the browser 2 panel over here. This is the browser tool panel. This is the layer panel. The layer panel basically contains all the layers that we'll eventually work on. So suppose we have an XYZ tiles over here. If I just right click on it and I click on new connection, now I can just simply name it. Suppose I name it Google Map Satellite. And here I paste the URL. Okay, so you can see I have the Google Map satellite over here. Now to import this, all I have to do is I just simply click on it and drag it into the layer panel. So now you can clearly see that we have loaded the Google Map over here. If I zoom in into any certain area such as this, so yeah, you can see the India's map over here. And here we have the coordinate projection system.
भैया अब की मीट कब तक चलेगी?
Sorry?
एक्चुअली हम लोग की एक और मीट हो रही है, मैं इसको अटेंड करना चाहती हूँ, तो मुझे यही जानना है कि कब तक चलेगी.
ये 7:30 तक शेड्यूल्ड है, तो मतलब अगर उससे पहले आपकी हो रही है और वो मतलब आपको अटेंड करनी है तो फिर आप यहाँ से जा सकते हैं, ऐसा कुछ है, प्रॉब्लम नहीं.
नहीं, मैं अभी यहीं पे आई हूँ, मुझे यही अटेंड करनी है, मैं यही सोच
7:30 तक चलेगा, 7:30 तक बस.
ठीक है, नमस्कार.
Okay,
थैंक यू.
sure. So this is the coordinate reference system. So the most commonly used coordinate reference system is WGS 84. It's known as World Geodetic System 84. 84 being the date when it was created, it came into existence. So I'll just refer to it and I'll just convert it into 4326. Okay, so now what we are going to do, I'll show you this first. So this is a basic map of the southern part of India, basically dating to the times of 1870. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, so this is an image basically. So this is a raster kind of data. So I want to bring it into my QGIS interface. So how can I do that? I'll simply go to layer. I'll go to add layer option and I'll click on add raster layer. Now here I'll click on this triple dot button you can see, and then I'll go to the folder where I have my data which I want to import. So this is the file that I want to import. So I'll just click on it and I'll just click add. So yeah, you can see it got added, but we had some pop-up saying that the CRS was not defined. So basically I'll set the CRS. So one thing you always have to take care is that this project CRS and the CRS of the layers that you import, basically they should be same. Otherwise there will be a problem in continuity. Your data won't overlap each other. So basically you have to always check that you just correctly match the CRS of the project as well as the layer. So I'll just set it to 4326 as I have it here. And if I zoom to this layer, you can see, yes. So can you see that there's something wrong with this map? We have our Google map somewhere over here, and then we have this map over here. So yeah, this is basically the problem. The computer system, it does not know where to place the map. Okay, we have to tell it. We have to give it some reference so that it can locate itself on the map. So for this purpose, we have to use georeferencing. So how to use georeferencing? Basically, to use georeferencing, you have to go through a plugin. You have to install a plugin, because QGIS by itself does not offer you the functionality to georeference an image. So make sure whenever you install any plugin on QGIS, you have a proper internet connection. And plugins are basically tools which are created by users all over the GIS community, the QGIS community, and made it available to everyone for their usage. So if you go to plugins and you simply search for georeferencer over there, So you can see you have a plugin named georeferences GDAL over here. You can install the plugin, and since I've already installed it, so I cannot, that option does not show up. So I've already installed. So where can you find it? You just have to go to raster, since it is a raster tool, obviously, and then you can see georeferencer over here. So just click on georeferencer and then open the file that you want to georeference. That is the 1870 Southern India map. Yeah, so the map is here. Now, after importing the map, again, reminding you of the same thing, that we have to define the CRS, the layer projection, so that compatibility issues won't be met as we move on. So nothing, I go to settings, I goes to raster property, and here I have a set source coordinate reference system. I make sure that it is EPSG 4326 WGS84. I just click on apply and I click on OK. Now what we have to do is we have to start georeferencing. So if I zoom into the map, you can see we have different numbers here, 70, 75, and as you move on to the right, you can see 80, 85, and so on. Now here similarly we have 5, and then we have 10, as you can see here, 15, and so on. So basically, what are these points? These points or these numberings mark the latitude and longitude. So these vertical lines are longitude, and these horizontal lines are latitude. Okay. So what we have to do exactly, these intersection points are the points, the coordinates which we have to feed into the system so that our system knows where to locate or reference our image. So what we do is we simply click on add point and we select this point. Just try to bring it at this intersection point. Obviously you don't be accurate every time because there will be some very minor error always involved, but that's okay, that can be neglected. So if I click on it, see, I just a pop-up appears and it prompts me to enter the map coordinates. Now here I have X east and Y north. Now this is a place where many people get confused. You have to always remember this. X stands for longitude and Y stands for latitude. Okay, so whenever you have to input your longitude and latitude data into it, always remember in terms of QGIS or any other software, maybe any proprietary software you use, X always refers to the longitude and Y always refers to the latitude. Okay, so for this point of intersection, what was the longitude? The longitude was 70, so I'll enter 70. The latitude was 5, so I'll enter just 5 and I'll click OK. So as you can see here, we have successfully entered our first point. You can also see a very small red dot over here which says that we have already marked a point. So similarly, I'll select some more points for georeferencing. Sorry. Yeah. So what I'll do is some few things that you have to take into consideration while georeferencing is that always try to take points which are equally distributed or symmetrically distributed, so that what happens is the picture that you georeference won't get distorted or the referencing won't be biased. So just try to distribute the point evenly. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take all the corner points. So basically I'll take this point. Now, as you can see, this number was 70, the next number was 75, 80. So the degree increment in each cell is 5 in both the directions. So if this is 70, so this will be 75, 80, 85, and 90. This numbering have been made clear here. I'm just doing it that way so that we can fasten up the process because it takes some time. So you can see here, yeah, so it is 90 and 5. So what I'll do, I'll just click on add point. And here I'll go X is, as I said, it's longitude. So I'll go 90 here. And here we'll have 5. Okay. Similarly, I'll select 2 more points. One point will be this. So for this node X value will be longitude, that is 90, and this Y value will be 50. Okay, you can see it through the numbering over here. I'm just doing it fast. And here, same value, X will be 70, and the northing will be 50. Okay, so yeah, I have selected 4 points. You can select as many points as you want. The more number of points you select, the better your georeferencing will be. But just for the sake of demonstration, I'll be taking 4 points. Now I'll just check whether all my settings are fine or not. Transformation type, you have a large number of transformations. In general, we use this thin plate spline. Target SRS, it's CS, it's 4326 WGS84, it's fine. Rest everything you don't need to worry about. Yeah, so output settings, this basically holds the location where your data will be saved. So what I'll do is I'll just create a new folder so that we can have some discipline while maintaining all the files of our workshop. I'll just name it workshop 1 1870 Southern India modified. Name doesn't matter. I'll click on save. I'll click OK, and here you have a play button which reads start georeferencing. So as now I have selected all of my points, I'll just click on it. It's done, and a pop-up should appear anytime telling us that it's complete. Yeah, so georeference was successful. Raster was successfully georeferenced. Now if I zoom over to the Google satellite, see, you can see something has happened over here. So as you can see, this is the original one, and this is the modified, the new version. The original still lies there. I can now remove it since I don't need it anymore. Just right click on it and this dialog box appears with number of options. Go to remove layer and just remove it because we don't need it anymore. So now you can see that yeah, georeferencing was successful because see, underlying we have the Google Maps satellite, and on top of that we have our map. So you can see how compatible that is. The continuity has truly been maintained. And so this is what basically QGIS functions. So as you can see, we have the base layer or any base layer, and then on top of that we have another layer. So this is something like a a layered cake. So since just the same way you have one layer on top of another, this is exactly something like that. Suppose assume that you have a picture, you take the picture and place a tracing paper on it, and then after placing the tracing paper you can draw some edges and some boundaries on it, and then when you take the tracing paper off, you have all the edges and boundaries, or maybe the silhouette of the character which you want to obtain from the picture, and the rest of the things which you did not bother about are no more there in the tracing paper. You obtain how much data you wanted from it. So basically this is how GIS works, okay, layer by layer. So we work on layers on top of other layers. So this is how GIS functions. So yeah, this image is georeferenced. I can now close it. Save GCPs. Basically, it is asking me to save these points which I have feed it into the computer, but I don't need it as of now, so I can always discard it. So yeah, after our image has been georeferenced, this brings us to our second topic, which is digitization. Now, what is digitization? This georeferencing was something which we did related to raster. Now, digitizing, when it comes to digitizing, it is all about vectors. Digitizing is basically creating vector data. We can create different types of vector data, as I said, point, lines, and polygons. So digitizing is basically all about that. So what is vector data? I'll just show you. So for digitizing, we need to create a vector layer first. Last time what we did with the raster data is we went to add layer and we added the raster layer back. But now we are digitizing. Digitizing refers to creating. So this time we'll go to create layer and we'll click a new shapefile layer. So let's start with a polygon first. So suppose I name it, I give it a name, state boundary, suppose. Then click on this triple dot to ensure your location. So I am in workshop 1. Just name it state boundary. Click on save. The geometry type. So you can see point, multi-point, line, and polygon. I'll name it polygon. Name. These are the fields. These are basically the data which I want to associate with my vector shapefile, or the vector data which I am going to create by digitization. So these are the fields that the table associated with this vector file will contain. So as you can see, it already has a field name ID. This field is mandatory because it acts as a primary key when you will be using SQL or Postgres along with GIS in the later run. So this field is always mandatory. If you do not add any other field, this field will anyhow stay. So I'll add some other fields. Maybe I'll name it, suppose say name, and the type is text data length. I'll click add to field list. Another one, I'll say type, again text data, add to field list. And then I'll say suppose area. Now I'll change the type to decimal. Length, how much length I want for the numbers that I'm going to plug in, say 20. Okay, let it be 20. Say I want precision up to 5 decimal places, and I'll add to field list, and I click on OK. So you can see something happened in this layer. Now we have created a layer named only, but it currently does not contain anything at all. So that's anything on this. So I'll go and I'll create 2 more shapefiles like this. This time it will be a line. Suppose I'll name it roads, maybe. The geometry type will be line. Same fields again. I'll have a name for it. I'll have a type for it. This time I'll also have a length for the road. Add to the field. Let it be. This is enough. A small line indicates the shape of this shapefile. Actually, this is a polygon. This is a line. And next up, we'll add a point. I'll just name it points. Difficult to come up with names. Points. Name nothing. Let it be. We'll just leave it with a single ID. Just click OK. So you can see now we have a point, we have road and state. Now we'll start our digitization work. So suppose I zoom in to this place. How did I zoom in? Here you have a magnifier glass. Just click, select, drag. You can zoom in. So I'll start. What I'll do is I want to extract. Can you see this? This is Mysore, 1870s Mysore. This is. So I just want to extract this part, as a from this raster. So what I'll do, nothing. So this is basically drawing. This is like the part where you trace all the silhouette on the paper. So I'll just click on state pointer. Since I'm digitizing a polygon over here, I'll just click on the polygon. After clicking on it, there is this button which you have to select. This is toggle editing. So this is basically an on off button. So only when you select this button are you eligible to make changes to this layer. Now otherwise you won't be able to make any changes in the layer. The layer will always remain in a lock state. So after clicking on toggle editing, I have a add polygon feature over here. I'll just click on it. Now what you have to do, you just need to go tracing through the boundary. So I click here, and as soon as I click here, you can see a red dashed line over here, and then go on. Is everyone able to follow up to now? Has the network been good? Can anybody confirm? Hello?
I think there is some network error. I guess.
Yes, sir.
In
Sir,
between
your
there was
screen is
voice break.
lagging.
Is it fine now, or is there any problem now? Is it working fine now?
Screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible.
Yes, screen is not visible.
And since how long has the screen not been visible?
2 to 3 minutes means 2 minutes approx.
Okay, so should I reshare my screen again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, give me a minute then. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's visible. So should I repeat this part again? The digitization part from the start?
Yes, sir. Repeat it. Uh,
Okay, so from which point should I repeat it again? From the point of when I started tracing this, or the point where I started creating the shapefiles? Okay, so did you like was the screen and everything all right until the end of georeferencing part?
yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll just explain this digitizing part once again. Okay, so what happened here is I created 3 vector layers over here. How did I do that? I went to this menu toolbar, I clicked on layer, I selected create layer. This is basically digitizing. Okay, you are creating a vector file. I clicked on new shape file, and then I went to I have different geometry types over here: point, line, and polygon, the 3 vector geometry types. And then I selected over here, I typed in the name, selected my location where I want to save this entire thing. And after that, I added some fields over here. You can see new field over here. Suppose I type anything, suppose any name or something, and then you have the type to define here. You can have a text data or whole number or decimal number, date, anything. You can define its length. You can add it to the field list. I did this once with the geometry type point, once with the geometry type rows, and sorry, once with the geometry type line, and for once with polygon. So I created these 3 kind of files. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to start digitizing. So how to digitize? Basically, this polygon, as you can see, this state of Mysore, the state of Mysore in 1870s map. This is the polygon that I would like to extract for now. So I'll just click on this layer. I'll click on toggle editing, and as soon as you click on toggle editing, only then you are allowed to make changes to this shapefile. This is an on off button actually. If this toggle editing is off, you cannot make changes to the shapefile. Now since I have selected it, now I can do anything. So here it says add polygon feature, so I'll just click on it and I'll start tracing my polygon. So I clicked here, you can see a small red dashed line over here that has originated. Now I'll just go on clicking along the edges, and in the end I'll have my data, the polygon file that I wanted to. So digitizing is a very is not an easy task to do actually. A lot of precision, a lot of manual labor is involved in it, and you have to be very careful while digitizing. This is just for the sake of demonstration that I'm doing it this fast. Otherwise you need to click at shorter intervals so that your polygon is more prominent, and I'm just clicking it at larger intervals because we have less time to work everything out. So yeah, so whenever you try to do this, do it with a lot of patience. And yeah, that it can get boring sometimes, but it's fine. So I'm just simply clicking some points. I'm not paying much heed to accuracy and being precise right now. It will take some time. There is no network issue right now, right? Everything is visible, everything is audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir, I
sir.
have joined lately, so can you please brief me what's going on?
Sorry.
Sir, I have joined lately, so can you please brief me that what I have missed and what's going on right now?
See, right now we have just finished discussing georeferencing, and now we are going on with digitization. So yeah, those who have joined late or you have missed it, will make the recorded session available to you, and you don't need to worry. Okay, so basically the problem is we are all at our homes, and if we were at college, in a classroom, the workshop was going on like in a lively manner. We were in a classroom and we would be discussing things properly, so only then you have been able to replicate all of this easily. Now sitting at your desks at different states, at different locations, and switching back and forth in between the QGIS window and through your this Microsoft
Yes,
Teams
sir.
window becomes difficult. So don't worry, just try to follow. You can also refer to the recorded session that we'll be sharing with you after all the session get over. And also tomorrow after the workshop ends, we'll be sharing all this data and all this manual. That is a step-by-step procedure, that documented procedure that you can follow uh, to replicate it at your own system. So that will be a training, basic simple training for you. You can always do that, and you can always reach out to us whenever you have any confusion. Okay, so once I have traced my entire polygon, as you can see now, it has been highlighted in a translucent reddish kind of color. And as soon as you are done with it, you feel that you have traced almost. You just need to right click. So just right click, and then a pop-up will appear. So what is this pop-up? This pop-up is basically telling you to feed all the information into the datas or the fields that you had created. So ID, I'll just give it one. Name, I'll give it Mysore. Type is state. This area field I'm leaving blank as of now. I'll come to this later on. So once you click on it, you can see that yeah, we have successfully digitized our Mysore state out of the map. Now if I right click on it, you can see an option called open attribute table over here. So if you click on that, you can see that yeah, so this is the table I was talking about. So you have an ID, you have a name, you have a type, and you have an area. And this single feature is the one and only entry in this. So when you create the second polygon, it will appear as ID2 with some other name and type, ID3. So similarly, we can have hundreds and thousands and lakhs of entries inside a single layer, that is inside a single polygon layer. So yeah, I'm done with this. I'll just
Sir, please,
turn. Yes.
sir, please tell what is the significance of digitizing the process which you have
Significance
done
of
right now.
digitizing is basically creating data. Okay, so what is the thing? The main thing is now data is becoming very relevant as we move on to the past. Okay, so now you are using Google Maps. Suppose you are sitting at your location, you are trying to reach out to Zomato to provide you no food or your favorite item online, everything. They go to a certain restaurant, they pick it up, they deliver it to your home. So all this is going through GIS. And why is this so easy? Because we have that data. Now suppose in your locality, in your area, you have a Pizza Hut, and you do not have the data of Pizza Hut, that the internet does not know that a Pizza Hut exists in your locality. So would you be able to order pizza from that place? So
No,
basically
buddy.
the use of digitization is this. So with increasing amount of data, now data is not only limited to computer sciences or IT, or the information that uh, Gmail or Facebook or WhatsApp takes from us. That is not the only data. Data can be anything. Data can be your personal data. Data can be your data about your colleges. So all this data, though, we are moving into a world of data. So this is where this thing becomes relevant. Okay, you get my point?
Okay, thank you, sir. I got you now. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, I have digitized a state boundary, that is the Mysore state boundary. Now I'll digitize a simple, say, road network. So I'll just click on the road layer similarly as I did back for the polygon layer. I'll click on toggle editing, and I'll click on this option which is called add line feature. I'll just click on it, and I'll just go on tracing this road. I'm doing it very roughly. I'm not paying attention to any accuracy or anything. a lot of use of digitization and data comes in handy during cartography. So basically, when we are creating maps of India or maps of any other parts of the world, this is where digitization is the most important. Okay, so I digitized this road and I right clicked and this gave me a pop-up. So I'll give it a ID 1. Name for this road, anything. I'll give it a name road 1. Type, suppose it's a national highway, NH. Length, I'm leaving it empty as of now. So you can see a very thin line which has appeared over there. If I just turn off this layer, you can see, can you see this line, this very hairline crack kind of line? So this is the road that which digitized just now. And I'll digitize two or three more roads. So I'll just click on this. Suppose I digitize this one, smaller one. I'll just right click. 2, the name is road 2. Now this is a state highway. Length I'm leaving empty as of now. And one more, this smaller ones. This is 3. Name it road 3. I name it district highway, district roads. Length I'm leaving empty as of now. Now I turn off the toggle editing because I want to save everything that I've created. And if I move on to the attribute table, you can see, yeah, the 3 roads that we have created, namely the national highway, the state highway, and the TR roads, they have been created over here. If I simply click here, you can see it will get highlighted in yellow, as you can see over here. Yeah, so this is the road, the NH road. Similarly, here in yellow, you have the state highway road, and then you have the district highway road over here. And I'll also digitize a few points. Digitizing the points is the easiest one. You just need to click on a single thing, and then voila, you have your point. So you can see the small dots over here. I'll just go on digitizing them. So I click here, ID 1. Okay, I click here, ID 2. Some few points I'll digitize. Here ID 3. Someone here, ID 4. Here, ID 5. 5 is enough. Okay, maybe one more. 6. Yeah. So I turn off the toggle editing. And as I go to attribute table, you can see, since I had single entry named ID, so I have all the different IDs over here. As I select the one, you can see it gets highlighted over here. So it tells us which feature is which entry is what. Okay, so yeah, this is it. This is what digitization was basically. Creation of data, creation of vector data is what you call digitization. Now, after digitization, I will show you one thing more, that is, I'll come to the state boundary. I open its attribute table and you can see I have something called area over here. Okay, so now I digitized the Mysore boundary, but I don't know how much area the state covers, right? Only if I have the data for it and I accurately digitize it, I can feed in the data like normal Excel sheets or something. But I don't know what the area is. So what I can do, I can simply leave it to the computer to evaluate for me. So what I need to do is I will click on toggle editing mode and I'll just go to open field calculator option over here. Note that this is inside the attribute table. So we right clicked on the state boundary layer. We went to the option named open attribute table and we are doing all this thing over here. The toggle editing mode button is available here and here as well. So we click on the open field calculator. We have two options over here, create a new field or update existing field. Since I want to update a value to my already existing field named area, I'll just click on update existing field. I'll select area over here. Now you have a large number of calculations, large number of options available to you, which you can use to evaluate some statistics over here. And under this, you have a section called geometry, as you can see it. In this geometry, you have different commands. So here we have one command which is $area. If you read the description, it says returns the area of the current feature. Area calculated by this function respects both the whatever it is. So I'll just simply write the command over here, which is $area. And as you can see, the output preview tells me that this is the area, but this area is in meters square. So to convert it into kilometer square, I'll just divide it by this 1000. So yeah, this is the area. So if I click on OK, yeah, so the area has been evaluated for me now. I can just turn off the toggle editing now, and yeah, it gets saved. Similarly, I can do the same thing for roads as well. I can go to the I can go to open attribute table, and here I have the length. I can turn on the toggle editing, open field calculator, update existing length, and I have a feature named, I have an expression named $length. So it will evaluate the length for me of all the roads that I digitized right now. Length by 1000 to obtain it in kilometers. Oops, since I had selected the single feature, only that thing got changed. I'll just deselect it. Here we have a deselect all option, and then I'll just do it once again. So what happened is I had just selected a single feature. So the feature you selected, the field calculator worked on that only. So that's why that error occurred. So I'll just click on $length, type in $length again, divided by 1000. So yeah, the length of all the three roads have been evaluated: the national highway, the state highway, and the district road. And there was another extra feature available over here, which was create virtual field or create a new field. That is, we can add a new field to the already existing table. So if I want to show you that, I can just go to state boundaries. I can click on toggle editing. I can come here, select, click, create a new field. I'll just name it perimeter. Type, I'll keep it decimal. 10.3 is fine. And here I'll write $perimeter. Again, dividing it by 1000. Obtain it in kilometers. And yeah, I have the perimeter of the state with me. Okay, so with this we bring digitization to an end. Now, before moving on to some symbological changes or to alter the appearance of all these things, I'll just like to demonstrate a few geoprocessing tools. So the most commonly used geoprocessing tools. So you have a processing toolbox over here. If this toolbox is somehow closed when you open the software, you can always go to processing and toolbox. This is where you'll find that. And look for buffer over here. So what is buffer? Buffer is basically, it creates a polygon around another vector layer. So basically, suppose you have a road network or you have a line, and you say that you want the area that is available, that you want all the area which can be reached in the how to explain it to you. Like suppose you want an area coverage of 5 kilometers from that road. So I have this state national highway road or any road, and I want the area coverage of 5 kilometers from this point. So what I'll do is I can create a buffer around it so that I can obtain it. So what I'll do is I'll just click on roads. Now here the distance is in degrees, that is in latitude, longitude, and since we need the values in meters, so actually 1 degree is something like 0.0095. 0.0095 degrees is somewhat equal to 1 kilometer. So what I'll do is I would like to have, say, 10 kilometers. 10 kilometers will be fine. Yeah, 10 kilometers will be fine. So if I run this, so you can see a polygon got created around it. So if I zoom in a little bit, so you can see, yeah, So this pinkish color polygon, it got created around this line. So what happened here is, if you take any point on this road, and this distance would be around 10 kilometers. Okay, so that is what happened over here. I'll just, this is one of the geoprocessing tool. It's called buffer. I'll just create another buffer to show you one more utility. So I have the distance over here. So it's 0.0. Let's keep it 9.5 this time. So it will be very clumsy, but yeah, it will be very big. Will it be very big? Yeah, it's very big. So if you open the attribute table for this, you can see there are three features. Because we selected the entire line layers, so we have three buffers created for three roads. So what we can always do is we can delete any entry that we do not want. Suppose I do not want the entry for state highway and national highway. So what I can do is I can always delete this entry. I can click on it and I can delete it. And then I switch on toggle editing and it's done. So here we have the buffer for this. So you can see this is like layers. So this is the point layer, is the layer which is on top of every other layer. Then we have the road layer, then we have the buffer, then we have, these are layers on one on top of another. So if I turn off all the layers, you can gradually see how this thing turns out to be. So we have the Google map, then we have the 1870s map which we bought by georeferencing. Then we brought up the state boundary, the polygon, and then we have the road network over here. I can't see it probably because it's very thin. Then we have the buffer layer over here, and then we have the points layer over here. So then you can do many other processing over here. There are intersection. You can see here intersection. So what intersection basically will do is, suppose we had a large number of points, some points outside this, some point inside this buffer. So now suppose suppose this point layer indicates all the hospitals that are present in the certain area, and suppose you are standing on this road and you want to access all the hospitals that are present within a 10-kilometer radius from this line. So what you'll do is you'll simply create a buffer of 10 kilometers, and all the points that will be falling inside the buffers are the hospitals that you can access within a 10 kilometers range from your place. So basically intersection will help you do that. There are many other options like clip, and then you can extract some points out of that, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this was an introduction to some basic geoprocessing tools, and now the most interesting thing maybe is how to make the appearance a little bit better, because we cannot see the roads and no, the color is not catchy to the eyes and all. So to do that, what you can do is you can go to properties, and then you have something called symbology over here. So what you can do is you can play with it, you can try it on your own. You have a large number of symbols available for points, as you can see over here. How did I access it? Again, I just clicked on this, went to properties and clicked on symbology. So yeah, I can select the color for it, and then if I click on simple marker, I can select the shape for it, and then I can maybe increase its size because it's not clearly visible. And I click on apply and okay, so you can see the points have been changed. Now similarly, I'll do the same thing for roads. I'll go to symbology. Let's pick up a road that is a little more visible. Suppose I increase the width to 4 and the color somewhat darker color. That is fine, and apply. So yeah, you can see the roads clearly now. And for the state boundary as well, you can do the same. You can go to properties and you have large number of options available to you. You can select a color, you can play with the opacity also. Now this was a completely opaque, you can reduce the opacity so it becomes a translucent kind of thing. And if I click on, suppose I select this, then I reduce the opacity a little bit. So you can see now, yeah, it's just a little bit transparent so that you can know which layer is on top of what. So yeah, these are the basic things. And yeah, sometimes you may see this kind of option appearing by the side of your layer. So this basically means that the layer is temporary. That is, it has not been saved in the memory of the computer. So before exiting from your QGIS project, you need to save it every time. This is a quick reminder. So to save it, just right click on it and go to export and save feature as. So this kind of pop-up will appear here. You can select the location where you want to save it. Suppose I select the same folder or same workspace. And I give a name to it, simple name, and then I click on OK. So yeah, it has been saved. As you can see, this was the original layer, which was the temporary layer, and this is the new layer. No doubt the symbology has been changed now because it has created a completely new layer out of the temporary one. But yeah, you can again alter it. And so yeah, that's it for today's session. I would like to wrap up the session, and tomorrow we'll be moving on to some more extra, functionalities. Some will explore a little bit more. We'll go on to a little bit advanced. This is totally the basics of QGIS. Like there are many options available to you. This is all you need to know to get started. Okay, after that you can always do your own hit and trial. You can play with it without fearing of anything going wrong. You can do whatever you'd like to want. Tomorrow we'll be discussing a few more things, and I'll also like to discuss with you one of my projects, a small project that I had worked on. And yeah, that's it from me, guys, for today. Thank you for bearing with me. Satakshi, we can conclude it.
Thank you, Devriya. We were grateful to have you. I would like to thank the whole team for working behind this event. And thank you, audience, for listening us. And you may leave now.
Does anyone have any question that they want to put up? You can put up any questions if you want. All these things that we discussed will be shared with you. So if you were not able to cope up with the speed of the workshop, then I can totally understand, because working like this becomes hectic many times. So all this will be shared with you with a detailed manual step-by-step procedure, so you can follow it at your own risk. So apart from that, if anybody has any question, any doubt that you faced, anything which you couldn't understand, you can ask.
And one more thing, I would like to tell all you that today we have another session, and the timings are 3:30 to 5.
Abhishek Savita wants to ask something, I guess. Okay, so anybody has any more question? Okay, I think no one has a question. Yeah, Satakshi, then we can conclude.
Okay. So
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.